Sometimes you just want to make something a little bit different. In the process of making our Airbnb slash in-law unit, we wanted to add some open shelves above the kitchenette to add some storage space. But we didn't want anything boring. We wanted to do something a little unique, so we wanted to add some sharp corners and geometry to it. In order to achieve this, we made these more as open front cabinets than we did actually open shelving, but it turned out really good in the end. So everything was built from 3/4 inch plywood, and there's actually one large sheet at the back that all the shelves would be attached to. And you can see in this clip here, I'm actually cutting a hole in that back sheet to allow an outlet that we installed to show through so that we could run power for the microwave as well as under cabinet and over cabinet lighting. This open front cabinet was basically made using all pocket holes and wood glue, which is a really strong joint for cabinetry. The cabinet itself was built basically as a 6-sided box with the front missing, and the middle shelf was installed permanently. This gave a... oh my god, look at the mug on that thing. Anyway, this gave a really solid base to add on those geometric shelves. The sides were pretty easy to install by just using right angle clamps to hold everything in place and then glue and screw it together. But for this middle shelf, I had to get a little more creative, so I just used these squares, clamped them in place, and then went ahead and glued it and screwed it in place. Holy this was a lot harder to build than I thought it was going to be. I got into troubleshooting with it, so I just didn't even film while I was trying to build the lower half of this. But now I've kind of figured it out. I got a process. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you how I made this on the top half. And basically what we're gonna do is mirror image this on the right side. So here's the method I chose to put these angular shelves together. You can see it requires 4 45-degree cuts and then this mess. The right way of cutting that mess was the difficult part to figure out, but I eventually settled on doing it at the table saw, so let me show you how. So essentially all I did was get the shelf cut down to the size I need, and then I set my table saw blade to 45 degrees, and I used the miter gauge to be able to push it through and just cut halfway through from one corner into the very middle of that board, the thickness of it. And then I would flip it and run it through again and be able to cut that little wedge out of the side. Now there is not an easy way to clamp these 45-degree angle pieces in here, so what I did is I used some of the offcuts that have 45-degree angle sides, and I kind of sandwiched the pieces in place to hold it so that I could get my final measurement on the horizontal shelf, as well as be able to mark these where the screws need to be installed. So all of this will be edge banded in the end, but I kind of want this diagonal to look like it's one consistent piece, not the shelf. And so what you want to make sure you do is this angle continues through the shelf board and into the next one. So you can't line them up on like a same vertical line right in the middle. You actually have to go through the board 45-degree angle and offset the boards to each side. So I apologize, we keep getting in the way on this shot, but you can kind of get the gist of what we're doing. We already drilled some holes in the back wall so that screws could come through to hold these 45-degree angle pieces in place, but we were running glue along the edges of them to hold them together toward the front. I think the real value from this shot though is right here, where you can see I use one of the offcut pieces to actually clamp against so that I have 2 parallel lines and can get this shelf piece to actually have enough pressure so that glue will bind with the shelf on the bottom. I then used some wood filler to fill all the gaps and sanded it all down, and then I sanded the front side of everything nice and flush so that the edge banding would adhere well. Here's a quick tip for you on edge banding. When you find yourself trying to install a long strip and it's trying to curl around the board, you can just get a little piece of tape and hold it on the far end and then just go right along it with an iron.
And per the usual, I don't paint. Thanks, Lauren.
So we're about to finally install the cabinets, and we had to bring in the big guns. So this is our friend Bo, and he's got his own YouTube channel. You can check it out here. But he could probably lift this thing with one hand, but we're gonna go ahead and get it up there, and Lauren's gonna screw it in.
This thing was pretty awkward to install because you can't really see it here, but there's a kitchenette down below with like a range and a refrigerator, and so you can't just hold it up. You got to hold your arms kind of out and up, so that's why we kind of tag teamed it to lift it in place. And we already had the screws pre-drilled and set, and so all Lauren had to do was just drive them into the studs, which were already marked for the right spots.
Alright, so one thing I forgot to do with that cabinet before we installed it is make a little trim piece that's going to go on the very bottom edge to be able to hide the under cabinet lighting. So we went ahead and cut this 2-inch piece of plywood that will go ahead and edge band on the bottom side, and then I'm going to go ahead and make pocket holes on the ends in the middle, and then we'll just glue it to the bottom of that cabinet and let it dry. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is go ahead and wire all of these LED under cabinet lights as well as above cabinet lights to kind of give just a little bit of an ambiance effect here. So what I need to do is I need to drill a hole through the side of this cabinet for the power cord to actually go through, and then I'll route it through the sides here, which I can still kind of access. I'll anchor all the lights on the bottom, run the cable up the other side, and run the lights across the top.
In a way, it worked out nice that I forgot to put that little trim piece on the bottom because it gave me better access to be able to install these LED lights.
Alright, so we got the piece of trim painted that's actually going to hide these under cabinet lights, and it's ready to be mounted. It was a warped piece of plywood, so as you can see here, there's definitely a gap. So I'm going to use some clamps to actually go ahead and close that gap. A little bit of wood glue on this. Wood glue will stick to painted surfaces, just not as good. But that's also why I went ahead and put the pocket holes along this strip as well. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this in place, get it clamped, and then I'll run these pocket hole screws in there and leave it for about 12 hours and it should be solid.
Since I was going to be clamping on painted surfaces, I didn't want the chance of that pressure in the paint somewhat freshly applied pulling off whenever I removed the clamps. So I used little pieces of shop towel to put between the clamp jaws and the wood so that it wouldn't actually mar the paint up any. I really like how this turned out. The geometric shapes and the angles of it just make it a little something different than just open cabinets or open shelving. It stores everything we need for this little Airbnb perfectly and gets it up off the countertops and out of the way and opens up more cabinet space down below. If you like this, please subscribe to the channel. We got more videos coming out soon, and until next time, take a chance and make something.